Thinking about accounting as a transaction and really thinking about it as a relationship is something that it feels like we're moving towards as an industry. We have been using and having our clients on QuickBooks basically since the beginning of Little Fish. And interestingly, I don't know how I found Fathom, but we've been using Fathom since the beginning of our service and got better and better at using it to deliver financial statements, but also to speak to the other parts of the business. We look at the forecast by quarter and we do all of their forecast individually within Fathom. So we update their forecast based on budget or the smart functionality. We added a section for taxes. How much should you be saving towards taxes for this month? How much have you paid already this year? When is the upcoming tax deadline? How can we get that information in front of you as part of your monthly financials so that all of our services come together? We want to make sure that you have this historical data on hand, but we want to spend our time together talking about what's coming next.
Welcome to Fathom's Expert Series. We chat with advisors, accountants and finance leaders to learn how they're using Fathom to deliver clarity and confidence and help businesses thrive. We're talking processes, top tips and key learnings. Join us for a great conversation. We are loving the Expert Series for showcasing our amazing customers. And one of those passionate people is Keila Hill-Trawick. Keila is a CPA and founder of Little Fish Accounting. It's a small boutique firm based in the US and 100% focused on helping small business. Keila is very active in the accounting industry. She hosts her own podcast called Fish Food. You might have seen her on other podcasts or in articles. And she's also a member of Intuit's Partner Council, amongst many other things that she does. Keila leads a team of 6 women with the mission of making accountancy information accessible to business owners. And today we get to find out exactly how she's doing that using Fathom. We look at how Keila's team structures their communication with clients, so the cadence of communication, the tools that they're using, for example, video, and we cover off how they're using Fathom's interactive tools. Keila steps us through a client report and she shows us the helpful sections they include to help further that understanding of the business owner. We touch a little bit on forecasting and we cover off Keila's best tips, learnings and mindset shifts. So join us for a great conversation.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Expert Series. Today we are thrilled to welcome the founder of Little Fish Accounting. We've got Keila Hill-Trawick here today. Welcome, Keila.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Katura and I cannot wait to talk to you today. Tell us briefly about your journey and what brought you to where you are now.
That's pretty interesting. So I am from Georgia. It's where I went to college and changed my major several times. I never wanted to be an accountant. And in one of my many majors, I had taken an accounting class and made an A in it. And so I thought, okay, I could probably do this. So I started Little Fish in 2018. And it's because accounting is such a traditional industry, there were like these firms, right? Firm with a capital F. And so I really started Little Fish with a mission of using my skill in service. I know how to do a thing. You don't know how to do that thing. But if you had a little bit of a leg up, maybe you wouldn't feel so scared and overwhelmed by it. And so we started on social media, giving out tips and tricks and information and just details on how people could do things. And a year later, I quit my job and went full time. And so I started by myself. And now we're a team of 6 women across the country. And we serve really small businesses. We stayed focused on the tiniest of businesses, professional service providers with one owner and really small teams. And so we've really been able to kind of hone an expertise in this specific area. We're able to go beyond just the accounting side to really talk to them about, like, I run a business like yours.
I love that. And I love your passion for delivering understanding around the numbers as a service. You're not telling people what to do, but even just the way you're talking, it's like you're taking them on the journey because you understand the pressures of running a business. So tell us, what is the mission for Little Fish Accounting? What's your purpose?
Yeah, I think one of the main things is that we wanted to make accounting information accessible. And so we start from a place of, a lot of people ask this question. Here's the stuff you should know to get started. And I really think that it's important that business owners and entrepreneurs have a soft place to land when they have questions, that they're able to like be proactive about looking forward, even when it's not their time, and that they can feel like they're getting more than the deliverable, that our job is like hand you financial statements or hand you tax returns, because if you can't interpret them and understand them, then I feel like we haven't really completed our role for you.
That makes perfect sense. One of the questions that I wanted to ask was, from your experience, what are some of the common challenges or pitfalls that accountants face in helping business owners understand their numbers?
I would say one of the first things is that generally accountants don't niche down. And I think that that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But as a result, we're trying to be the jack of all trades. I can help you with every kind of accounting thing that you can come up with, because if it's in the accounting lane, I can probably figure it out. And as we know, that just takes a lot of time. If I have to be good at 1,000 things for 1,000,000 different types of people, it gets really difficult for me to give you personalized attention because I'm trying to learn so much stuff. I think the other thing is that accounting as an industry tends to feel commoditized. So we often fall into like bookkeeping or tax. And I will do these tasks for you. I remember even when we started Little Fish, a lot of our work was like, I will do this task for this much. And then if you want this thing, I will do that. And it will be this much more. And so accountants tend to value what they're doing based off of like hours or this specific group of tasks that I'm willing to do for you. And so I think just like stepping outside of that is something that we're not always good at. And then finally, I think accountants are facing, they're overworked. A lot of accountants are burned out. They're doing so many deliverables that they won't all be great, but they can make enough to kind of pull it all together. And so not thinking about accounting as a transaction and really thinking about it as a relationship is something that it feels like we're moving in the direction towards, but it's going to take some time for us to really shift as an industry towards that thought.
Yeah. No.
I love that so much, that you're blowing out of the water the transactional focus, the traditional transactional focus, and I love how you describe it as a relationship. On that theme, Keila, what are you and your team at Little Fish Accounting most excited about?
So I just finished reading a book called Unreasonable Hospitality, which I basically felt like I was highlighting the whole book. But one of the things that we're looking most forward to is really just doubling down on how easy it can be to work together. That's everything from dashboards that allow you to see everything that's outstanding, financial statements that are easy for you to read and understand, a resource library that you can go back to and not always have to be asking us in email. Really just these small but big things that allow us to serve better and allow the deliverable itself to almost be, that's the only transactional piece. Like, yes, you're going to get this thing. I'm going to do your tax return. We are going to give you these financial statements, but really using those as a baseline for the service and not the service itself. It's like your service is around that. I think a lot around how Unreasonable Hospitality was really around a restaurant. And I think about how your experience could be so good. Yep, we're going to give you deliverables and they are going to be great. But like, how does it feel to receive that experience and make you a better business owner as a result, as opposed to just giving you paperwork?
I really appreciate learning a little bit more about some of those offerings, really finding that niche and a better way to serve your client. What are the tools that you use? What is working for you?
Yeah. So we work really hard, like I said, to make it easy to work with us. We have been using and having our clients on QuickBooks basically since the beginning of Little Fish. And interestingly, I don't know how I found Fathom, but we've been using Fathom since the beginning of our service. Even when we weren't doing a whole lot of KPIs and it wasn't very complex, I didn't even know maybe who I was serving, but they made our financial statements prettier. And branding has always been incredibly important. Everything from our website to the way that we show up online, everything that we do is built from a place of branding consistency. That everything that you get from us should look like it came from us. I didn't want this idea of like, you get these beautiful guides from us and the internet looks really nice and your social looks really nice, and then you get these flat financial statements. Like, it's, it's the dessert, it's the menu, it's all of the pieces that should look like us. So we've always used Fathom and just kind of got better and better at using it to deliver financial statements, but also to speak to the other parts of the business. For example, now we added a section for taxes. How much should you be saving towards taxes for this month? How much have you paid already this year? When is the upcoming tax deadline? Like, how can we get that information in front of you as part of your monthly financials so that all of our services come together?
Can you just step us through the cadence of communication you use then to stay on the front foot and how you're anticipating what your clients need?
Yeah, so we do that in a couple of ways. So for monthly financials, we send transactions review on a more regular cadence, usually weekly or biweekly, depending on where they are. That stops them from getting to the end of the month and having to capture everything that we have questions on. We also tell them that they pretty much have unlimited email access to us. So if you've got a question, I don't want you holding it until we have another meeting, send it. If it's a letter that you received or a random thing that you heard on social that you're wondering if it applies to you, send it. We tell clients all the time, send us all your things. If it's us, we'll take care of it. If it's not, we can at least point you in the right direction. There's no reason for you to go down a rabbit hole of something that's not your expertise if it's something that we can support. Then we have monthly calls for our financial manager clients. So they get budgets and forecasts and all of the advisory stuff. So we talk to our financial manager clients monthly. They are getting budgets and forecasts and advisory and KPI that we build for them in Fathom. And then we use that to really direct what our next conversation is going to be about when we talk to them. We really want to be proactive. In the middle of the year, we want to say, what is going on for the latter half of the year? Are you hiring? Are you thinking about changing your business entity type? Are you launching a new product or taking something back? Because we have this opportunity to have a business chat that is going to lead back to the accounting. But first, I need to know what you're doing. Like, what are you thinking about? What are you trying to achieve? Because then some of your questions about what you want to do with taxes or how you want to spend your money are really going to be directly impacted on the dreams that you have about what your business looks like for the next part of the year.
Love that. Going into the reports that you provide, can you talk us through the structure of those reports? What works best for your clients and how long does it take to put those together?
They're really fast now because we have templates. So we set up templates based on the types of service that they're in Fathom. And we have it built out to everything from a simple version to a more complex version. We add some nuances and personalization based on the client. We know that some people want to see it by month. Some people only want to see it by quarter. We have some more details, like we add a letter at the top that acts as kind of a summary of like, this is your revenue and expenses. This is your net cash flow. So we'll have that a lot because we have one owner businesses, right, that are wondering, how do I have this profit, but I don't have any money? And we're like, these are all the draws that you took out. So yes, you had a profit, but that is not the same as cash. And we're able to explain that to them. It takes really no time to build them in Fathom. We use more of the time to just analyze what's in there to make sure we're answering questions before they're asked. Hey, why did this number go up? Why is this over budget? Was it a paycheck month? So that we're not arbitrarily just saying you were over budget on this thing. And we'll talk about budgets and forecasts later, but really just making sure that they know the distinction between the two so that their financial statements themselves almost act as archival information. It happened last month. We want to make sure that you have this historical data on hand, but we want to spend our time together talking about what's coming next. So this is our report, and we start with a letter. So we start with this letter, and then we go into revenue and expenses, and then we give them some charts, because sometimes they can see it better. This is a client that tends to like to see it on quarters better. And then we break down their revenue by type, so that they can see like where they're making money for the month and year to date. So if they've got goals on like, we actually want 50% of our income to be coming from here, we can show them that. And then we go into profitability, showing just kind of some snapshot numbers for them so that they can tell like how much cash is there, how much do they have available, how many months that will cover. And then we show their profitability. A lot of this too is really good for people who don't have losses as often. So like this is a client that I know she's gonna be like, oh my gosh, we have a loss. So it's nice to be able to show her, well, throughout the year, this is not a regular occurrence for you. Look how often you're actually above the line. And then we go through their actual financials, their revenue versus budget. We call out anything that's specific. We also use this as a point to say on our next call, if I've noticed that like a lot of this was under budget, we need to have a conversation and update the budget. We always make them a zero-based budget, so that can be their baseline of like, you need to make at least this much to cover expenses. And then we use their forecast to say, this is what's actually happening. So we check in on their budget twice a year mostly. And then we do just revenue versus budget so that if they've got some targets that they're trying to hit, we can. Then we have some shorter ones on there, year-to-date P&L, and then versus prior year and revenue. She really likes her revenue broken down, so we do everything twice. And then typically we just look at their balance sheet. Normally they don't have this month, but we just look at it to say, is there anything obvious that stands out? We like to say that your balance sheet is boring, so we're not worried about anything. That's good. And then we do their budget versus forecast comparison. So we look at what they've done so far and what their budget is for the rest of the year. This is really helpful for, we have this client and another client who looks at most of their stuff on a yearly basis. And so being able to say, if this is what you have to make for the rest of the year in order to break even, can you? Do you have the things in place that would actually pay for that? And then we look at the forecast by quarter. And we do all of their forecast individually within Fathom. So we go line by line and update their forecast based on budget or the smart functionality to do previous quarters or previous months, average or linear regression. And then we have a section for taxes to basically just say, this is what we think you should be doing this month. This is what you've made so far year to date and what your taxes are. And then this is how much you've paid in taxes. So this is also a point for us if they haven't been paying their estimated taxes to say, this is what we estimate you're probably going to owe. And you don't have any money that came out yet. So you can be aware of it. And then just a reminder of the deadlines over here.
Wonderful. That report, I love the colors. I mean, website theme colors, but that is a very well organized report. Love the taxes section. I didn't even think about adding that down.
We had a tax one that is what that year end one looked like, but I think we ended up taking it off because we didn't have to pay for an extra company because they only get it once a year. But we have one that we were like rotating out clients for at the end of the year to say, all right, this is all the stuff we see. Here is kind of your year-end summary for taxes. And we were able to do that by streamlining everybody's chart of accounts so that it's easy to pull in to say, here's your estimated federal taxes that you paid. Here's the dates that those were paid. And we gave that, and people really liked it at the end of the year.
Keila, talk us through what are the biggest challenges from your client's perspective in terms of their understanding? Do most clients, when they look at the report, do they get it straight away?
So one of the things that has really helped us is that we built a resource library of information that can help clients before they need it. So for example, even clients who don't get monthly calls with us actually get a video that says, this is how you look at your balance sheet and your P&L. How much is outstanding? Does that seem right to you? Should we be having conversations about whether or not that's the right number? Do you understand your profit and loss and what types of income are coming in? And does that kind of vibe with what you were expecting to actually happen within the business financials? The other thing that I think happens is that people just don't know where to look. And so our resource library is really supportive in blog posts and guides. So if we get enough questions about something, we will make a thing on it.
Wow, I love that. You're proactive on so many fronts with your clients' information needs.
Yeah, we didn't know that at first. And I think that's, the more you do, the more you learn, the more questions that we got about it, the more we realized, oh, this should exist. The more people that asked us, I don't understand why I don't have any money if I have a profit. We were like, oh, that's a KPI that we need to add in Fathom when we give you your financials so that everybody can see, oh, there's a difference between what the profit was and what the net cash flow is. And we can talk about what that difference is, but it doesn't have to start from what does this even mean? How come I'm not seeing that?
I love this phrase you use, Keila, where you talk about super serving your clients. Can you talk us through just how you streamline your service offering and what that looks like at the moment?
Yeah, when we started, we had a buffet. So basically, if you asked us for a thing that was accounting related, I was like, I could do that. And it cost this much. And then we would do it. And we were always starting from scratch because there was no scalability. There was no streamlined version of like what this looked like. If you asked me for a thing, I would kind of build you a package on the spot. The other thing that I realized really early on is as long as we were doing ad hoc things, there were gaps in between that business owners didn't necessarily know how to do for themselves. So a perfect example is tax returns. Annual tax returns, we can prepare them for you. You owe. We say, hey, part of the reason you owe is because you didn't make any estimated payments last year. So you should do that this year. This is when they're due. This is when you should do them. Cool. And so our idea of super serving was, what does it mean for us to say, hey, what if we did that for you? What if you didn't have to worry about that part? And part of our relationship with you was just going to be, we will take care of this for you. What should that cost? What would that look like? And what would allow clients to be able to do? And how could we make it so that we could serve you better and provide this for you in a way that we could streamline across the board? And so once we figured that out, that became a new service offering within our tiers. So first, we are super proud of our website. It was really a labor of love. Shout out to Hudson Marketing. Y'all do great. But they have been taking care of all of our design needs. And one of the things that we brought to them from the beginning was that we really wanted service with us to feel like a spa. This idea that like when you walk in the front door, there's a receptionist that greets you. They make sure that you're comfortable while you're waiting for your service provider to actually come in. And that's how we wanted accounting to feel. And then along those same lines, when we talk about services, our tax prep suite is really the baseline. And we wanted to make sure that with all our service that you were getting year-round support, that nothing that we did for you was like, we're going to do a deliverable and then that's going to be the end for you. It will always be this idea that throughout the year, you are going to have questions, you are going to want somebody to support you, and we can do that as part of this service. We talked to them. We wanted to, again, in trying to be proactive, we added a video to the website to just say, you might be wondering what this is about. So before you even set up a call and all of that, we've got something set up for you. And we did this for all of the services. And then we laid out what was included. One of the things that I always thought was kind of frustrating about accounting is that because it was so general, people wouldn't really know what they were walking into. And so it would be like, okay, you get your taxes done. And I was like, well, what does that mean? What does it mean to do bookkeeping? What does it mean to do quarterly taxes? Are you just estimating for me? Are you going to pay them on my behalf? And so we wanted to be really specific about that. And then, like I said, that's really the baseline of everything that we do in Tax Prep Suite. And then the next level up is elevated bookkeeping. And elevated bookkeeping for us was that level of, if we're going to take care of your taxes, what if you didn't have to worry about the numbers at all? What if you could always be sure that the numbers that we're using for your tax return are right? And throughout the year, you're getting support in making sure that they're accurate. One of the questions that you all asked about challenges is that most people don't know what their numbers are doing because they're not doing them regularly. And so we get to the end of the year or we get around tax season and they're like, oh my gosh, I have to it all together. I have to do all these pieces. And so we really wanted to make that a burden that they didn't have to worry about, so that by the time we got to taxes, you knew you weren't behind. And the kind of cheat code was, even if you didn't answer us for a month, maybe you don't answer us for 2, you know that it was right up to a certain point. You know that it wasn't, I have no idea the last time that I touched it or the last time that I did something with this. And so we wanted to kind of make that easier for them. And so keeping up with monthly transactions, making sure that they had the most recent financial statements, and then again, tying that to their taxes. What does this mean for your tax burden? How much should you be putting aside every month to make sure that you're prepared by the time we ask for your quarterly taxes? And then for us, kind of the final version of that for our ideal client is financial manager. And financial manager is our way of saying, okay, so we took your taxes out of the way. We got bookkeeping taken care of for you. All of these pieces are solid. But now what? Like throughout the year, what kind of decisions do you want to be able to make for your business? And what information do you need to be able to do that? And so Fathom has helped us to be able to make not only pretty financial statements that tell them what they need, but tell them those KPIs. How much cash do you have on hand? How many months would that cover you? What is your operating profit? Also being able to benchmark that against other clients. What do we think that your operating profit margin should be? Is this high or low? And again, that's not the end. I think it can be really easy to say you're over budget or your operating profit margin should have been 25% and it's only 20. And what we want to say is, but we know your business and we know that you were investing a lot this month. You spent a lot on hiring. You were doing a whole bunch of different pieces. That's why it's low. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. We just want to interpret that and then use that information to say, do we think next month is going to look the same? Are we expecting you to be under budget for this thing that's coming up because you're doing a huge launch in a month and a half? Like, how can we use that information to really inform how you move forward? And so we talk to clients and financial manager generally towards the middle of the month. And we want to use the information from the financial statements that we already sent with their video alongside what we can see month to date, and say, okay, so based on this information, what should we be expecting? What pivots should you be making, or what items should you be paying special attention to this month so that you don't feel like you're just constantly behind?
I'm curious if you use different KPIs, whether those are custom or general, between your elevated bookkeeping and then that additional tier.
So we actually think that the KPIs are so valuable that we don't offer them in elevated bookkeeping. So we really want elevated bookkeeping to be the compliance and tracking part that says it is going to be in order, it is going to be accurate. But if you want the analysis of what those numbers are actually saying to you, the financial manager service is really where you're going to get that. And we did that for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons was cost. So who want those baseline items may not be able to invest at a level that really allows them to get kind of the full spectrum of all the things that they need. The other thing is we are committed to staying small. And so that means that our bandwidth can go really deep for a few people. And we want to make sure that those are the right people and that they actually need that. We have a lot of clients who are in a range, an income range or in a profit range where they're just trying to make sure that they stay on board. And they may not get the same value from the additional advisory services because it's like, am I making money? Do I have enough in the bank? Fine. What we do offer them is the cash on hand and the estimated tax percentages, because we want them to be able to say, hey, we pointed this out on your balance sheet, but we would also like to add, this is how much money you have right now. And if that means that you should be looking at a line of credit, if it means I'm not worried about this because I know I'm getting a huge grant at the end of the month, I just want you to be aware that this much is available to spend on your business. And I think being able to even call that out as a KPI to say, this is how much is in your operating account. Keep that in mind when you're making decisions on what's next. This is how much we're going to ask for your estimated taxes, and that's in a separate account. make sure that you have that. I think it's just really important for them to be able to see even those small KPIs to help to build them to be ready for the more advisory and bigger KPIs that we do later.
That makes sense. From everything that you've covered, what helps you get the best results for your clients? Is it just a mindset? Is it a specific tool? Is it a process? Or maybe a little bit of all?
I think it's a combination. I will say that what makes me most proud of the work we do and how is that we always start with service. You are paying for someone to help you feel better, to help you not stress about your finances, to help you not be worried when an IRS letter comes that we're just like, oh, just send that to us. Like, read it, look over it, but we will look at it and tell you next steps. You're paying for the peace of mind that somebody else can take this off of your brain plate. And I think as long as we continue to come from a place of we're honored to be able to do that for you, you selected us and we selected you. Again, we're a really small team. We can only have so many phone calls and so many emails and all of those things. And so being able to lean on our communication tools, being able to lean on Fathom to not have to rebuild all of these things from scratch, but really say, hey, I can copy over last month. I can make a couple tweaks. And then I know that I'm going to be able to deliver to you with consistency a very good looking tool. Also, and this is kind of new for us, forever we've been downloading the statements and sending them and not letting clients go into Fathom. And so one of the things that's really exciting for us this year is really allowing them to have that kind of tactile experience, to scroll over things, to see what graphs are doing, to see comments and notes, and what doesn't, the PDF just makes it flat. And so they can see it and we walk through it, but really just giving them that much more of a robust experience to say, when you come in here, you can kind of glide across these and see what the numbers are doing in a way that just delivering them to you doesn't. So every time we're able to add a little bit more luxury without a huge lift on our end, I just am glad that we're doing our job that way.
That's super exciting to hear that, Keila, that interactivity. Talk us more through that. Is that when you're on a Zoom call with a client, or are you giving them their own access into Fathom?
Yeah, so up to this point, we have been preparing the report in Fathom. We have been downloading it. And then before their call, they get a video with the delivery of their financial statements. So they will get the financial statements. They will also get a link to the video that walks them through all of their KPIs, all of their budget, being able to compare budget to forecast, saying, okay, here's how much you had to make just to break even. Here's what we can see on the horizon based on the invoices that are coming in or the contracts that you've signed. This is what it looks like. So keep that in mind and what it would cover. But then when we get on the call, we actually have the call with Fathom open live and make those changes. So I had a call today where a client was like, actually seeing this monthly isn't as helpful to me because of all of the ebbs and flows that we have. I'd really like to see it quarterly and year to date. And so being able to just like essentially from the click of a button, just say not monthly anymore, quarterly. By the end of the call, it was funny because we were about to get off and she said, and don't forget that I want to see those quarterly going next month. I was like, it's already changed. Like while you were talking, I was able to make those changes for you. And so when we're able to do that fast, the follow-up is easier. There is not an email that's like, by the way, I made this change for you. And so the next level up from that for us will be letting them be interactive with it, letting them get a notification when they're available so that they can go in and kind of play with it if they want to, and allow us to do some of the things that we're doing on video, have comments so that they can really reflect back on those later without having to watch the video necessarily. So having 2 different ways, even 3 different ways that they're able to see it, 1 as a flat PDF, 2 as a video, 3 as an interactive version that they can kind of go through later, I think also just meets the needs of different clients and the ways that they need to hear, see, and learn things.
That is exciting to hear that. I love that in the room, you're shaping your service immediately, like you said, with the click of a button. Can you talk us through another example where that interactivity has been so helpful, not only for just scaling changes across the client's account, but a problem that you've been able to solve? in the room
Yeah.
together?
We had a client who had a lot of unearned revenue. So she was getting prepayments and we could see them, but it kind of got hidden on the balance sheet. You could see it, but it wasn't really telling the whole story. And so one of the things that we were able to do as she was talking us through it was really just break that out so that we could have a distinction between the amount of money that was in the bank account and then a very clear line of like, but some of this isn't yours because you know that you're going to have to pay the subcontractors and the people that are coming out. And so now every month she's able to see this is how much, yes, is total in the bank account, but this is how much is actually available for operating expenses. So that when you're making decisions, I think it can be easy to say, for example, cash on hand, where your cash on hand, we just want to come out of this bucket. And so being able to do that on the call while she was telling us about prepaid expenses, update her letter, being able to show her like, hey, here is what I'm thinking. If we added this table, does that answer your questions? Does that tell you what you want? And it was like, yeah, but I'd really like to see this on a monthly basis. Okay, we can add some columns so you can see it monthly. So it was also nice to get immediate feedback while we were talking to her, as opposed to kind of building the whole thing, shipping it out, and then having to get a response on whether or not she liked it. It was very quick to say, do you like this? Does this color make sense? Would you like to see it further up in the report? Do you want to see this every month or do you want to see this on a quarterly basis? I can make all of these shifts while you're talking to me. And that means when I get off the call, we're done. That we're not having to do all the extra pieces to try to make sure that that's accurate.
I love that. It's live, happening, interactive accounting. Who would have thought you would ever get to that place, Keila?
I did not. When I was changing my major all those times to avoid accounting, I would never have thought that this could be something that's so enjoyable. But I think when you are really focused on the fact that the numbers aren't just the numbers, when you're focused on, and not even just the story, because I think a lot of people talk about the story, but there are people behind the businesses and they are trying to make the decisions that they can to support their families, to support their teams, to have thriving businesses. And they cannot do that without data that they can rely on.
So, Keila, you're obviously a fantastic communicator. You've really thought through your service offering and you've taken steps to put into play the way that you can provide the most value to your clients. If other founders or people running their business were hearing you today and wanting to do the same, take that next step, demarcating between low value work and high value work, what would your advice be to them?
I think the first thing is to know you don't have to do it all at once. I think we tend to start looking at it and think, you're right, I shouldn't be doing any of these clients. I will get rid of all of them tomorrow and get a whole new batch. Know that you have time to really start easing people off slowly. And it may be a one in, one out situation. That's what we did at the beginning of like every time we got a new client at the service that we wanted, we looked at our client base to say who might need to roll off, who doesn't get as much value from us. And again, I think our goal was really to provide a soft place to land. If you're not going to be with us, here are some recommendations that we have for you. Here's what I think you should be looking for. Maybe you don't need all the pieces that we have. So knowing that one, you don't have to do it all at once. Do we need to pay to outsource this or do we just need not to offer it at our firm? But the more you can get rid of the things that you don't like, the things that you're super passionate about and give you joy and give you excitement, you get to run towards those things. And then it's that much easier. Accountants talk a lot about marketing and how can I get in front of people? This is a lot easier when you like the thing that you do. And so I think that's my last piece of advice is like figure out what you really like about accounting, because what you like, somebody needs, and that could be all that you do if you just give yourself time to explore it.
Fantastic, Keila. Well, we've so enjoyed talking to you today, and I love how you've just unpacked your processes and importantly the thinking behind your processes. You're putting clients at the center, but you're also really carefully thinking through what's the best value you can give your clients and restructuring your services. So 2 questions to cap off our interview with you today, Keila. The first is, what's one of the most influential mindset shifts an accountant or advisor can make, in your opinion?
Oh, it's cliche, but like collaboration will take you everywhere. If I had accountants in my corner at the beginning when I was trying to figure all this out by myself, the business could have been so much further along. And in my case, I just didn't know any better. But once I started talking to other accountants, going to conferences, showing up in groups with other accountants, I just learned so much. Everything from this is how we serve our clients to we tried that software before and we didn't like it. And this is what it could do for you. I learned so much that got us so much further that I think it can be easy to look at people in your peer group as competition. And really, we're all doing this together. All clients and taxpayers don't want the same thing. And so we all have something different to offer. The more that we can share and make this industry better, the better we make it for ourselves and the people that we're serving.
I love that. And then finally, a tough question to cap off everything. What's something that accountants don't talk about enough that we should be talking about?
I don't think we talk enough about mistakes. Like, I think that we talk about accounting like it's a perfectionist art. You never get it wrong. Everybody's taxes are always perfect. You send out financials that always say the right things. And I think if we could have more stories around the things you missed and the time that you misread a tax code and did it wrong and the way that you were able to correct that, or maybe you weren't and it just felt like trash and then you learned and you did it better next time. I think as long as we hold all that in, we inadvertently create spaces for people to think that they're the only ones that are messing up, that we are all doing it so well all the time. And it sucks for you that you made this mistake. And the more conversations that we could have around us being humans, around the idea that like as precise as we are and as much as we try to pay attention to detail, that we are imperfect. And that is how it is supposed to be. We have to recognize that we're not always going to get it right either. I think that we could do a better job of having conversations about how to deal with that, how to deal with the anxiety that comes with it, and how to do it better next time in a way that doesn't just kind of leave us feeling bad about ourselves in the meantime.
I love that. And whilst we call this series the Expert Series, it's really talking to people who are expert at learning more and more, growing, changing, adapting, putting clients at the center of all their work. So it's fascinating to talk to you, Keila. Thank you so much for your time. I'll pop links to your business and your website and your podcast at the end of this interview. But we love what you're doing and we wish you all the best.
Thank you both so much for having me. This was amazing. I love being able to talk about this stuff, so I'm glad you had me on.
Thanks, Keila. I wish you were my accountant.